Hiya folks, this is just a little guitar video. What I've done is how to adjust your truss rod and lower your bridge slightly. Now this is an old guitar I've had for a lot of years. It's been carted around the world and stood in a corner gathering dust and grime, so it needed restringing and the truss rod doing in the bridge, and as I said, this is how to do it. And if you'd like it, subscribe if you'd like to subscribe, and comments and questions are always welcome. Thanks for looking, it's nice to be nice. So this is a guitar I've had for about 9 years. Now it were bought new. It's been halfway around the world and back and served me well, but now it's in dire need of some TLC, which I'm going to give it to bring it back into playability. Well, it plays, but not as well as it could do, and it's obviously been stood in a corner in cellar. It spent a lot of time behind sofa, but now it's time to give it a restring, adjust the truss rod, and I'll look whether I have to lower this bridge. It's never had anything done to it other than being played and dragged around, so but I'll show you what I mean about the neck and the truss rod, and I'll show you what I do to sort of give it a new lease of life and make it more playable. So what I've done is I've just set a straight edge up. I'll balance it on, well, put a couple of clamps on the end so it don't fall over, so you can see. And you can see how much play, how much height there is. That's set up front bridge to the nut, and my string height down here, if I can get this in and keep it in shot. Where am I? Half there. Is, what's that say? That's about 9 millimetre, which is hell of a lot, heck of a lot. So my options are now well, I'm looking now, and the bridge is not that high. It could be lowered a little bit, but this is a problem with the, well, it's been kept in not ideal conditions and being played with and everything, so what happens is you get some movement in the neck, so it's a truss rod adjustment more than anything on this, and I'll show you the reason why right now. Now what I've done now is set up this straight edge, and this is set up from bottom of the fretboard to the nut, and that allows you to see better how much this, when I've focused it, how much this neck has actually gone. Now this is normal, it's 8 years old, and as I said, it's had nothing done. Different humidity, temperatures it's been through, and this happens. So I'm going to adjust truss rod up a bit with these strings on before I restring it. I'm going to loosen strings and retune it up, and do a little bit of a job on on truss rod. See how that brings it down, and then look whether I need to adjust the actual height of the bridge on it. Now you can see that, but that's the actual adjustment there for the truss rod. Now, on a acoustic guitar it's usually here, and on an electric guitar it's usually up here. So I've loosened them, loosen them a bit more even. Now the thing is with this neck's wood, obviously, and wood takes a little bit more time to move than the steel truss rod, so ideally it's something you're going to do slow, and I need to do them a little bit more, but this one is tightening. So what I've done is I've tuned it back up again, and I've probably turned the truss rod about probably three quarters to a full turn, and that's brought the play down by over 1mm. If you can, I hope you can see. Before I had about 2mm clearance there, and now I've got probably 1. So I'm just going to go a little bit more. I'm going to detune it again and do it again. Maybe another half a turn. Might just do the job. So you can see that I've detuned it and retuned it again. Just put a piece of white paper behind. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to see. I've still got a bit of light under here, which it should have, and further up to about here, and then it gets down pretty much flat. It's not S-shaped, because that's something else it shouldn't be, because otherwise you've got a bulge here. That's pretty good. Like I said, I've detuned it and retuned it, and I've left it about an hour or so just to let the wood stretch, because the wood doesn't move as fast as the actual, well, when you tighten the truss rod, the wood takes a bit of time to stretch because it's wood. So you've got to leave it a bit. It might actually go a little bit more on its own now, but adjusting it back, loosening it anti-clockwise, tightening it is clockwise, anti-clockwise is loosening it, is not a problem if it needs it. It's brought the action down now from which it was about, let me just try and move this a sec without making everything kaput. The action now, it was about 7 down here, and now it's 4 or 5, about halfway, probably more, yeah, 4.5, which is a vast improvement, which makes it a hell of a lot more playable, because the action, depending on how high the action is, depends on how hard you have to work. And one of the nastiest things about learning to play guitar, if anybody's, well, if you're just learning, is something with high action is going to make your fingers hurt. And that's one of the biggest things that puts people off playing, is how much pain. But if no pain, no gain, so they say. But what I'm also going to do is adjust this nut slightly. Now I'm going to probably take about 1mm off that. Now, if I was accidentally to go too far, I can repair that. There's a quick fix for it, which is basically using, well, something to put under it, a spacer, which could be a piece of credit card, piece of thin cardboard, whatever you've got. Credit card works well, so it can be fixed. That's not a huge problem if you do a little bit too much off it. But like I said, I'm going to take 1mm off that, and that should just bring it down, because this is not a particularly expensive guitar, although it has got a very nice sound. And if I take 1mm off it, it might bring it down to optimum, and I can always, like I say, shift it up or loosen the truss rod a little bit more. Now I'm going to do the part which makes everyone cringe if you're a guitarist. I'm going to cut the strings and have a look at the frets. Wire cutters. This is pretty much detuned. Safety glasses are always good. One-eyed guitarists used to be quite common. Get a string break, lose an eye. It's much easier to take off when I do that. But as you can see, look, it's very disgustingly dirty, and there's quite a bit of fret wear here. I'm not going to change these. I've got some fret wire, but at this point in time they'll do. I could dress them up again, which means I'd tape that off, tape all fretboard off, and give them a bit of a sand or a file, depending on how bad they are. But I don't know yet. I'll have a look at that. Focus. I will have a look at that. But now I've got frets off, strings off. I'm going to give it a jolly good clean. Hoover it out, remove any Lego and other things that might be in there. Believe me, lots of things have been in there. Might find some plectrums, spiders, but I'll just show you in a sec how I'm going to mark this bridge so that I can file it. Focus. Aha, there we go. I'll show you in a sec how I'm going to do that. I'll just take these strings off first. So I've took all strings off. Now I've got the wonderful task of cleaning it. Incidentally, I'll show you how I'm going to mark that in a sec, but look at that, lovely. There inside is electroacoustic, and that is your piezo rod, or your piezo wire. You can see that, but there's a little wire in there, and the vibrations go to the piezo, and that's what gives you your electric, where you can plug it in. So, what I said about this bridge, I'm going to lower it, put that in to the original grind mark, and can you hold that a sec, Dylan, and point it there, please? Just point it at the bridge. That's it. And just get a pencil.
Yeah.
Cameraman Dylan. I'll hold that down. Now that line's approximately a millimetre thick, and what I'll do is file off the bottom of this, and until that disappears out of sight, and that's all. I'll take a millimetre off it, and then I can test it again with my straight edge across to see what my height is from my strings, measure it, which I'll do that again now just to check, and I can then do it again after just to check and see where my distance comes to. Thank you, sir. Incidentally, what I'm going to clean this with is a very little bit of detergent in some water, just dishwasher detergent, and a very old toothbrush to get round all these little bits that are nasty. Now, I'm not going to soak it through, I'm going to have a cloth and keep wiping it down, but it'll get me round all these little nasty bits.
All these here?
Yeah, well, not so much on body, but all the bits what you can't get into, like all round here in this edge. It's really hard to clean.
And like on
and
the
all
other
round
side
here.
Between the metal.
That's right, yeah. And I'll just make sure all these are nice, well, nice and tight, just so that nothing's rattling, and give it a good old check over, and then that'll be a case of putting it back together and giving it a play.
Yeah.
So that's that. Looks lots better. The actions looks lots better. Could possibly go a little bit lower on the bridge, but what I've noticed with this, I've just put these strings are a little bit lighter than strings I've done before. Before with medium to heavy, and these are light, medium sort of, and they're a little bit thinner, and the grooves on the notes are cut a little bit deep, because ideally your string should sit so that they're about half and half really, but they're a little bit low. A fix for that would be, now this is a plastic nut, but with a bone nut, well, I could just do it with this even. What you do is you file some bone, or plastic if you've got some, but I haven't got anything that's hard enough, and you file it and put some super glue in it, and you can recut for your strings. Now, a little bit low. It don't buzz, but there is absolute minimum, and that's nothing to do with what I've done to the guitar. That's to do with the slots on the nut that are quite wide and quite deep, set up for thicker strings basically. But what I'll do now is give it a play. I cleaned all that finger sludge, sweat and skin. If you know anything about guitars, that's sweat and skin, all paid for in hard work. But it looks the part now. I just cleaned it down, give it a quick wipe over with a little bit of furniture oil, but it's a polish oil which is it don't leave a residue, and that's what you don't want, a residue. You don't want to be using oil and thick oil and wax and stuff like that. This is just well, you can buy all sorts of great products for guitars at very expensive prices. Fast Fret, for instance, and there's various other products, but for that, serves its purpose perfectly. It's non-sticky, doesn't smear, practically evaporates off when it's when you put it on. So there you go. Let's go and give it a blast.